Hello guys, this is going to be the video on chapter 16, which is Document and Handwriting Analysis. All right, so just a quick review, and again, please do not forget to answer the questions on the Google form that's been included in Classroom. Make sure all the questions from chapter 13, chapter 15, and chapter 16 get answered before you submit it. That is going to be a grade. All right, so in document analysis, we're going to talk about how expert analysis can individualize handwriting to particular people, what evidence can be submitted, the 3 types of forgery, how to characterize different types of paper, and the impact of computer crime, as well as the different types of computer crime. So you're going to look at the 12-point analysis of handwriting, trying to detect deliberately disguised handwriting, detecting erasures and developing impression, designing an experiment to use that. We're not going to do that. Safeguards against counterfeiting, we will talk about that, and some of the methods of internet fraud. All right, so a question document, when we look at it, we're going to be looking at different things, the handwriting, the ink, the paper, to authenticate it. So that would be for like letters, checks, wills, passports, anything that is of importance in documentation. Verification needs to be investigated. Authentication, characterization, pigments, inks, all of this stuff is very important when looking at a document and analyzing it. And you guys can see Gizmo behind me. Gizzy! Say hi. He's a little wired today. All right, related fields. Okay, so what types of documents get examined? You have historical dating, verification of documents or objects. Fraud investigation, paper and ink specialists will look at different things associated with that. Forgery specialists and typewriting analysis. That's not quite so much, but again, some people still use a typewriter, and you can analyze the characteristics associated with that as well. All right, so a forensic examiner will look at a document and compare question documents with known material. A known material is called an exemplar, okay? And then the unknown is the questioned one, okay? So right here, if you're looking at K1, that's the known sample, and question 1 would be the one we're trying to verify. And if you look at it, you can see that right here, this is not these 2 samples do not match each other, okay? All right, guys, I was just looking at my notes and looking at some other information here. This is just one sample of a particular document, and the examiner who analyzed these 2 documents believed that they were written by the same person. Okay, so K1 and Q1 are from the same person, but they were trying to determine whether or not it was put there by writing, or if it was mechanically put there, as in it was copied or photocopied or something like that. All right. So handwriting looks at the hardware, which includes anything that's used to write the document, and then they look at the writing itself, and that's where it can become more individual. Okay. So handwriting characteristics, they'll look at 12 points of a document, okay? And the 12 points will be line quality, okay? You can find these in a little more descriptive 487 and 488 in your textbook, okay? So line quality, basically, are the lines smooth, jagged? How do they look? Spacing of the words, ratio of relative height, width, and size of the letters. Pen lifts and separations. How do they form new words? How do they lift their pens up? Spacing, stuff like that. Connecting strokes. How do the capital letters connect to the lowercase letters? Shading and pen pressure. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. Beginning and ending strokes. How do capital letter, okay, so let's see, compare how the writer begins and ends a word, number, or letter. Unusual letter formations, slanting and pen pressure, baseline habits. Do they follow a straight line all the way across, or do they tend to kind of go up, or do they kind of tend to go down? Okay. Sorry about the noise. You're probably hearing the cats running around playing with each other. Flourishes and embellishments, fancy letters, curls, loops, stuff like that. Diacritic placement. Diacritic is one term that you guys definitely need to know. Basically, it's the crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's. How are the little crosses over the T's? How are the dots placed over the I? That can be extremely unique. All right, handwriting identification. Okay, so when you're analyzing handwriting, you want to determine the characteristics found in the known. So you want to have a known sample from the person in question, and you want to be able to compare it to the question document. Okay. You'll look for similarities and dissimilarities. Were they written by the same person? And it's those little minute details that you really, really need to look for. And you must have enough known samples to make it determine whether or not they match. Okay. All right. So when you're given an analyzing sample to be that, you want the subject, don't show them the question document. Okay. Don't tell them how to spell words, how to use punctuation, use similar materials. The dictated text needs to match some of the stuff in the document. They need to sign it, and you need to have a witness. You always need to have a witness present. All right, forgery. There are 3 types of forgery that I want you guys to know. There's simulated forgery, there's trace forgery, and there's blind forgery. Okay, a blind forgery is where you you don't have a model of the signature, so you just sign it yourself. These are usually in petition frauds or anonymous for harassing subscriptions, criminal civil cases. Investigators, this is the one they have the highest rate of identifying. Okay. It's also the most easy for a layperson or an average person to identify as well. A simulated forgery is one where you copy a genuine signature. Okay. It's done by practicing it so much that you can avoid many of the hesitations and pen lifts that you see in a forgery. This can be very difficult to link to a suspect. Trace forgery, obviously, is where you trace a genuine signature. Okay. Stereo microscopic investigation can disclose this because line qualities can be inconsistent. Indentation and stuff like that can also be detected as well. All right, so these are different types of forgeries. For example, check fraud, paper money, identity. That's a big thing nowadays, especially in the digital age. credit cards, art, contracts. This is why it's important when you have documents that you get rid of, that you shred them and destroy them. And obviously be careful online. You want your information to stay safe. All right, obliterations. These are removed by physical or chemical means. You can detect them through microscope, UV or infrared light, digital imaging. Indentations can be determined by oblique writing and electrostatic detection apparatus. That was that video where we saw in CSI when we were doing that one case where they had the particles moving into the indentions, and then you could see what had been written there. All right, famous forgers and forgeries. Forensic linguist. They look at the linguistic content. It can be used to establish age, gender, ethnicity, education, training, ideology, stuff like that. All right, chromatography is used to separate the components of inks. The easiest one is paper chromatography, and it's the easiest for water-based inks. So you could do that at home if you wanted to. All right, so in the case of paper chromatography, you can see how two different types of manufacturers, or two different types of black pens, even though they look black, once you perform paper chromatography, you can see that they're composed of different materials. You don't need to worry about this, so we're going to skip it. All right, paper. All right, how do you look at paper? Most people, it's like, hey, it's just paper, but you look at the raw material, the weight, the density, thickness, color, watermarks, age, and does it fluoresce? And that can be unique among different types of paper. If you look at newspaper versus printer paper versus cardstock, you can see that there are different types of paper. Pencils. When you're looking at pencils, you want to look at the lead, the hardness scale. Okay. Basically, it's how hard the graphite is, or the lead. Okay. So a number 2 is a hardness of 2H, and different pencils are used for different things, and you can determine the hardness scale. All right, guys, so I think, so evidence, when you're looking at evidence, you want to look at class characteristics of types of pens, pencils, or paper. Individual characteristics can be the unique handwriting characteristics, trash marks from a copier, or the printer serial numbers that's sometimes printed on the papers as well. In terms of counterfeiting, counterfeiting is something that's pretty common, and it is controlled by the Secret Service, which, hey, you know, they're in charge of protecting the president, but they are also, their main job is to look into counterfeiting. Please excuse me. All right, so paper money, currency that we have, is not just paper, it's actually paper with red and blue lines or fibers woven through it. So you know, that's what keeps it from falling apart if it gets washed. We have all these details that just keep adding, that keep getting added to help counteract counterfeiting, like background color, shades, watermarks, and stuff like that. All right, and all right. So that's it for chapter 16, guys. Again, please remember to answer the questions on the Google form that I put in Classroom, and submit it once you have all the questions done.